This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
A dramatic increase in new cases of COVID-19 being reported worldwide amid ramped-up containment measures. What African countries are doing to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus. And millions remain at risk of starvation in South Sudan. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live. And I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme, efforts to boost agricultural production in South Africa, and COVID-19 pandemic leaves athletes stranded as World Athletics postpones events. We begin with the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. A dramatic increase in new cases has been reported worldwide. Outside China, 136 countries have confirmed over 75,000 cases and more than 2,600 deaths. Italy has the largest outbreak in Europe. It reported nearly 3,500 new cases on Saturday. Its total tops 21,000 cases and over 1,400 deaths. Iran is the worst hit country in the Middle East. It's reporting more than 12,000 confirmed cases and over 600 deaths. South Korea has seen a slowdown in new cases, reporting more than 70 new infections and 3 more deaths. It has reported 8,100 cases and 75 deaths in total. In Africa, the Central African Republic and the Republic of the Congo have just reported their first cases. On Saturday, China reported 27 new cases. Of the 20 on the mainland, only 4 were in Wuhan. That's the capital of Hubei province. The remaining 16 were imported cases outside Hubei. China's total number of confirmed cases is around 81,000. Over 80% of those patients have recovered and more than 3,000 have died. Beijing authorities have intensified measures to curb the number of imported COVID-19 cases, which have become a major challenge to its epidemic prevention and control. Authorities say all overseas passengers to Beijing will be transferred to an isolation point for a 2-week quarantine. The passengers shall bear all expenses incurred during the period. People will be held accountable in accordance with the law if they spread the virus by concealing illness. Meanwhile, all inbound international flights to Beijing Capital International Airport will land at a special zone in Terminal 3. In Wuhan, the situation continues to improve with a falling number of active cases. Earlier, our correspondent Sun Tianyuan gave us an update.
According to the National Health Commission, Wuhan reported only 4 new confirmed cases as of midnight on Saturday. So all of the 10 new fatalities occurred in the Chinese mainland were still here in Wuhan. The city is categorized as a high-risk region and is still under lockdown. It's been over 50 days since Wuhan made the tough lockdown decision in order to curb the outbreak. But meanwhile, dozens of cities and counties in Hubei with lower risks have lifted travel bans. The regions have started to allow residents deemed healthy to travel within the province. Each person can receive a QR code via a mobile application. A green code indicates that the person is uninfected and healthy. Public transportation in low and middle risk regions are also gradually returning to back to normal. A Hubei official says residents with a green code is allowed to take public transportation after receiving body temperature checks at the stations. And passengers are also advised to wear masks and not to sit too close to one another.
Well, as the number of new COVID-19 cases across China slows, residents in major cities across the nation are getting back on track in their daily routines. Reporter Yang Jiangxi has more from Shanghai.
Across China, COVID-19 cases continue to trend downward. The daily increase of new confirmed cases has dropped to double digits in the past week, and many Chinese citizens outside of Hubei province are starting to get back into the swing of daily life. These racks are for delivery workers to put their packages on so that they don't enter the communities. E-commerce is a big part of Chinese people's lives, especially in times like this, when many buy just about everything they need online. Perhaps a major sign that things are returning to normal is that many pharmacies in the cities have face masks for sale once again. Now remember, back in late January when public panic was at its highest, these things were very hard to come by. This week, about 3.6 million people will ride the subway daily in Shanghai. Not nearly as many as the same time last year, but the number has been rising week after week as more businesses resume office operations. A QR code has been added to each subway car. Passengers are encouraged to scan and enter their phone numbers. Authorities say this will not only help them keep track of infected individuals, it will also alert those registered whenever risks are detected. While many adults have started going to work again, most schools across China remain closed. However, that doesn't mean students are not studying. Online classrooms were quickly popularized across the country, and most students are now using tablets or phones to study live. This is the Yu Garden in Shanghai, which was one of the most crowded tourist spots in the city. We see visitors coming in again, but it's still relatively empty. And that's because most restaurants here, like many in the city, can only offer takeouts per authorities' requests. But last week, this restaurant became the first in the neighborhood to receive an approval to reopen for in-house diners.
We take everyone's temperatures and guests need to leave their phone numbers so we can contact them if necessary in the next 14 days.
This shop gives free face masks to all customers in order to boost sales. Across the city, some 98% of supermarkets are open, and no shortage of supplies are seen in Shanghai. Experts predict a surge in consumption across the country when the outbreak is over, based on China's experience with the SARS epidemic in 2003. Yang Chengxi, CGTN, Shanghai.
Spain has become the second European nation after Italy to go into lockdown. Nearly 200 people have died, while more than 6,000 have been confirmed with the virus, including the Prime Minister's wife. Our reporter Rahul Patak brings us the latest from Madrid.
The effects of the state of emergency, we're into day 2 of the state of emergency, meaning people are encouraged to stay at home and to only go out and for essential items like for food shopping or for medical reasons, or to go to and from work. Of course, it's the weekend here, and so people on Monday, when the national lockdown begins, that's when we're going to see the effects of the national lockdown. People going to and from work, medical trips and for food trips will be the only things that will be allowed. And even now the police are getting a little bit jumpy when they were seeing us setting up for our live. They were sort of looking a little bit interested in maybe asking us a few questions, why are you out here? It's going to be quite difficult, in fact, for us to do our jobs from tomorrow. It'll be very interesting to see how the local residents cope with these extraordinary measures in these extraordinary times. At the moment, the locals seem to be taking it in their stride. It's still a bit of a novelty, to be honest with you, but come back to us in 15 days' time and see how people are feeling then, because this is a city that likes to go out. This is a city that enjoys socialising. It's not just a weekend thing for people here in Madrid. It's very cheap to go out here, so people pretty much go out every day of the week, be it to after work, be it to have a few drinks with friends, to catch up with them, or to have a meal. And to have that kind of culture to be stopped in its tracks is going to be a huge deal for this city to cope with. And at the moment they seem to be taking it in their stride, but it will be really interesting to see how the residents are feeling in 15 days' time when the state of emergency is meant to finish. But of course there is always the option for that state of emergency to be extended if the government of Pedro Sanchez feels that they're not getting a lid on this situation.
Well, let's now look at the numbers across Africa. Countries across the continent have reported over 200 cases so far, with around 7 deaths. The Republic of Congo has recorded its first case. Egypt maintains the highest number of COVID-19 cases so far, after confirming at least 110 cases and 2 deaths resulting from the virus. It was earlier reported that 26 people recovered after receiving treatment. In Côte d'Ivoire, 3 new cases have been detected, bringing the total number of infections in the country to 4. In South Africa, there are now 51 reported cases, rising from a previous count of 38. Meanwhile, Algeria says it now has 37 infections and has recorded its 3rd death from the disease. Senegal reported 3 new cases on Saturday, bringing its new total to 24. Morocco has applied strict border restrictions in response to COVID-19, with their total number of cases rising to 17 and 1 recorded death. While health authorities in Nigeria say a man who contracted COVID-19 after coming into contact with an infected Italian national in the country has now tested negative. Kenya, Ethiopia and Namibia also reported their index cases, with Namibia confirming 2 infections from a couple visiting from Spain. Well, for more updates on a new confirmed coronavirus case in the Congo Republic, we are now joined by our reporter, Daniel Arapmoy. Daniel, a case of COVID-19 now recorded in Congo Republic. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, thank you very much, Karen. Yes, the government of Congo Brazzaville has indeed confirmed a case of coronavirus, a positive case of coronavirus. Now, what we're gathering from the government officials here is that this is a francophone Congolese national who traveled from Italy, but the government says that he had a brief stopover in Belgium before crossing over to Congo Brazzaville. So what the government is trying to do is that they're trying to monitor other passengers that could have been on board the Ethiopian Airlines that he used, that is ET861 that came to Brazzaville. Now, this individual is reported to have come into the country on the 1st of March. And when he realized that he had symptoms of the virus, he decided to present himself to health authorities here in Brazzaville, and he was tested positive. And that was yesterday on the 14th of March.
And Daniel, you mentioned there that obviously the authorities are trying to contact those who are on the same flight. What other measures are being put in place to contain the possible spread of COVID-19 in the country?
Yes, indeed. What the government is telling people is that citizens of Congo Brazzaville should take precautionary measures as guideline presented to them by the World Health Organization Africa region, which is in fact based here in Congo Brazzaville. So this is what majority of people are trying to do. You know, government is advising people not to panic, wash your hands every time, every now and then, if possible, use sanitizers if you can't afford. If you can't afford, wash your hands all the time using soap. So those are the measures that the government is putting in place. There's nothing very specific that they're doing, but we did speak to the World Health Organization Africa region here, and they say that the country is well equipped to deal with the outbreak of this virus, but they were not specific to tell us exactly what they're doing, but they're saying that the country is indeed well prepared to tackle the spread of this virus. So hopefully we will be seeing this, and we expect the World Health Organization Africa region to call a press conference anytime soon, probably this coming week, to give us more details and what the Minister of Health here is trying to do. But as we speak right now, the family members, the wife of this individual, who is a French national, and his 6-year-old daughter are under surveillance by the government. So that is what they're trying to do. Now, we are not sure whether he came into contact with other people when he came in here, but right now they are under surveillance. And for this person that is positive, is under surveillance by the government. His family is separate from him. So that is what is happening here in Congo Brazzaville.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That was our reporter Daniel Arapmoy there in Congo Republic after it has confirmed its first case of COVID-19. Senegal's President Macky Sall has called an emergency meeting on the fight against COVID-19. This meeting follows the announcement of 11 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 on Friday. It brings the number of people infected to 24, including 2 cured cases. During the meeting, several virology professors and epidemic specialists were consulted. Activities planned to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Senegal's independence have now been suspended. Besides this, 5 urgent measures will be adopted to tackle the COVID-19 threat.
Sur proposition du Comité national de gestion des épidémies,
on the proposal of the National Committee for Management of Epidemics, I first decided to ban for a period of 30 days of all public demonstrations throughout the national territory. Secondly, the temporary abolition of reception of cruise ships on the national territory and the systematic strengthening of health controls at land, air and sea borders. Thirdly, the suspension of teaching in schools and universities for a period of 3 weeks from Monday, March 16, 2020. Fourth, strengthening the protection of health, security, defense and rescue personnel mobilized. Fifth, the suspension of national formalities related to pilgrimages for the year 2020 to the holy places of Islam and of Christianity.
Tunisia has closed all its maritime borders until early April as it seeks to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Tunisian Prime Minister Elias Fakhfakh says the decision was made following various consultations. The government has also stopped all flights to and from Italy while restricting those between the country and France, Spain, Britain, Germany and Egypt. CGTN's Adnan Chouachi has the details.
The Minister of Transport and Logistics announced that only commercial shipping will continue under tight health and security measures.
Only container ships with goods will be authorized to dock at the port. A medical team will embark the ship to make the necessary tests, while crew members will not be authorized to leave it. We've also stopped all other maritime activity and transport of travelers from and to Tunisia.
Authorities have also suspended collective prayers, including the Friday prayer, and decided to close the cafes, restaurants and nightclubs from 4 p.m.
These measures are likely to limit the spread of the virus. These measures must be accompanied by citizen awareness regarding compliance with health instructions related mainly to hygiene rules.
All cultural events, festivals, seminars and scientific meetings have been cancelled, while all public and private nurseries, kindergartens, foreign schools, colleges and high schools will be closed until March 28th.
What happened in Italy is a catastrophe. We want to prevent such a disastrous scenario here in Tunisia. The parliament backed the government in any necessary decisions, even the most radical ones, to save lives and stop the coronavirus.
Elias Fakhfakh affirmed that the new measures are aimed at combating the spread of the coronavirus, pointing out that Tunisia has reached stage 2 of the epidemic. In this context, he stated that these measures is a move to stage 3 in the fight against the virus, with the aim of containing its impact on the health of citizens and on economic activities. The country's premier stressed that the new measures were adopted after consultation with the President of the Republic, the Speaker of the House of the People's Representatives, and the national organizations. Meanwhile, health authorities announced that negative results of COVID-19 screening tests do not lead to the end of the 14-day period of sanitary self-isolation. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Uganda has heightened its preparedness to deal with COVID-19 following the confirmation of a case in neighbouring Kenya. The virus is yet to be detected in Uganda, but the country's health ministry is intensifying screening at all entry points and public places. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga visited a health facility in the capital, Kampala, to see how they're preparing to combat the disease.
A drop of sanitizer for every visitor. That's just part of the new protocol. Health providers here bracing themselves for the spread of coronavirus.
Anyone who accesses our premises from the main gate, you'll be required to fill in a questionnaire. You'll be required to practice hand hygiene. We shall give you sanitizers where you'll clean your hands. you be expected to allow us check your temperature, because that is also a requirement.
In the questionnaire, visitors are required to share their travel history and whether they are suffering from any symptoms. And they are also having their temperature taken. Uganda has not yet registered a case of coronavirus, but health workers here are not taking chances. They are doing all it takes to keep the disease at bay. The health facility says it has also stocked enough medical supplies in case of an outbreak.
This is how our medical team dresses up in case we have any suspect we've picked from the screening points from the main gate. And we make sure that they are protected in a way that nothing can access our staffs.
The Uganda government has issued guidelines on how to stay safe. They include anyone with a flu-like symptom is required to seek treatment, wear a mask, and stay at home. All public gatherings are to be cleared by the country's health ministry.
Ministry of Health is alert, and at every point, entry point of this country, medical people are there in order to ward off this thing that doesn't attack us. And you should not go everywhere touching people.
With these measures in place, Uganda hopes to keep her population safe from the deadly disease. Hilara Yesiga, CGTN, Kampala.
We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including millions of people remain at risk of starvation in South Sudan. And how a group of painters are overcoming disability to produce amazing works of art.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Aid agencies are warning of one of the worst food security situations in South Sudan. The UN says over half the population will face acute food shortages by next month. CGTN's Patrick Hoyt now reports.
Locusts are the latest issue to create problems for South Sudan's food security. The United Nations says the locusts are laying eggs in the eastern part of the country, which could hatch by April, a time when farmers are scheduled to begin cultivation. But the UN says a number of factors have contributed to the food insecurity.
Those problems are long-term in nature as well. We've had many years of conflict, many years of droughts. We've had all sorts of economic challenges that people across the country face.
Flooding late last year washed away crops, livestock and homes, destroying people's livelihoods. South Sudan's government says it is working to improve the situation.
The government is fully committed to the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement so as to afford our people a better life. We look forward to a peaceful environment that will continue to support the recovery of disrupted livelihoods and greater participation of the population in the upcoming 2020 agricultural season.
The new unity government is being set up in South Sudan as a result of the 2018 peace agreement. The country has a new executive, but other officials such as members of parliament and state governors are yet to be appointed. The judiciary is also due to be restructured. Even if relative peace and security are being restored in the country, many South Sudanese people who are returning from refugee camps would still need to cultivate, plant and wait for harvest, which would need at least 3 to 6 months, during which time those farmers would have to depend on food aid. Another challenge in South Sudan is that infrastructure such as the road network is poor. Aid agencies are sometimes forced to use food airdrops.
One of our big challenges, therefore, is the remoteness of the country, the difficulty of reaching people, the difficulty of those people to reach markets, to actually get access to food. So our logistics capacity in this country is one of the biggest in the World Food Programme across all 82 countries that we work in.
Farmers in South Sudan also have no access to financial services such as loans for agriculture. That means the main farming system is subsistence, which is negatively affected by natural factors such as drought. But experts say if lasting peace returns to the country, financial institutions will find a way of providing loans to farmers, and that would help improve food security situation. Patrick Hoyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
At least 20 Egyptians have died during the past 2 days in incidents related to extreme weather conditions. Streets were flooded while some roads were destroyed. Schools have also been closed as Egypt faced its toughest storm in 25 years. Adel El Mahrouhi tells us more.
The usually sparkly Nile River in Egypt has changed its color, turning into murky yellow, an indicator to the volume of sand and mud poured in it as heavy rain pounded several Egyptian cities and villages. Bracing for the heaviest storm in decades, the government has shut down the country. It has also advised people to remain at home. At least 20 people have died. Dozens more have been injured in accidents related to the weather. Since Thursday, millions of Egyptians have had to cope with power cuts and a shortage of fresh water. Cairo's infrastructure could not cope with the huge volume of water. The Egyptian Meteorological Authority says the country got more than 45 millimeters of rainfall. Movement across the capital was affected as some of the biggest roads were submerged. Dozens of vehicles, including trucks, got stuck along the roads, leaving drivers stranded inside. Some villages have sunk and several buildings reportedly collapsed. Rescue and maintenance operations the army and the police are leading are still ongoing. The government is still calculating the cost of the damage the storm inflicted. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Since the start of the global HIV epidemic, women and girls in many regions have been disproportionately affected by HIV. According to a new UN report, it's gender inequality that continues to make them more vulnerable to the disease. CGTN's Yulissa Njamela has more.
The report, titled "We've Got the Power," essentially urges governments to do more to empower women and girls and fulfill their human rights. According to the United Nations, women account for more than half of the people living with HIV worldwide. And young women between the ages of 15 to 24 are more likely to acquire HIV than their male counterparts.
Of the 220,000 new HIV infections in South Africa in 2018, 69,000 of these were among adolescent girls and young women between the ages of 15 and 24. Compare that to 25,000 among their male peers.
Almost 25 million people worldwide are on HIV treatment. 13 million of those are women. The report shows that progress has been made in key areas.
We've come a long way on this. Deaths have declined. We have now about 800,000 deaths last year, but that's come down by millions. So we see a lot of progress.
60% of people living with HIV in South Africa are women, and we need to speak about what kind of response that we are talking about. We want to reduce the HIV incidence, and over the years we have successfully reduced those incidents. 5 years ago, we were reporting that we had 2,500 new infections amongst girls per week in South Africa, but right now we are reporting 1,200 new infections per week.
South Africa has the largest HIV pandemic in the world. The country also has the largest antiretroviral program.
Because of South Africa's excellent HIV treatment program, we have seen some kind of impactful results, I should say. Women and girls in 2010 dying were 440,000, and in 2018 this was reduced to 270,000. This is a significant reduction.
But prevention is still an issue that needs close attention.
Prevention is actually less, is very effective. Prevention is less expensive, and prevention will help this country to allocate the resources for other important social services rather than, really being reactive and responding.
The report also outlines some critical areas that need to be addressed. These include eliminating violence against women in areas with a high HIV prevalence. Intimate partner violence has been found to increase the risk of women acquiring HIV by 50%. Yolisa Njabela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All of the business news coming up for you after the break, including efforts to boost agricultural production in South Africa.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The Black Farmers Association of South Africa has partnered with a private sector player to set up agricultural hubs that use modern technology across the country. The association, which aims to empower black farmers with government funding to venture into commercially viable farming, will work with the LFP group. CGTN Sumitra Naidu has the details.
The goal is to assist emerging black farmers to become sub-commercial and commercial farmers through skills development and skills transfer. If successful, it has the potential to create thousands of jobs.
We want to create the agri-entrepreneurs. I'm currently associated with 50,000 members who I have to look into those, and then we take them from smallholder farms to sub-commercial, commercial, which would automatically double and triple their employment that they can do for the communities.
Emerging farmers will be assisted with funding and negotiating agreements with large-scale retailers.
In our last meeting that we had with all the retailers, your ShopRite checkers and Distel that were there, they also showed interest and also are happy to work with the black farmers. If you operate in our space, you need also to empower people, not only to give jobs, ownership. It's key in all aspects.
The Kings too made a contribution to this partnership, donating 500,000 hectares of land for farming.
500,000 hectares.
Out of the 500,000 hectares of Bakulu land, I'll be giving each household 1 hectare.
1 hectare.
We as Kings, we have decided to take part in terms of empowering our communities, our youth. As I speak to you now, I have already sent a student to go and study in Belarus for agriculture. Also, I've sent people to go and study in America. I'm trying to fight poverty. Our people are very, very hungry.
The new partnership will also be introducing new age and non-conventional farming by way of hydroponics, aeroponics and aquaculture farming. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Algeria is preparing to launch an international initiative aimed at restoring oil prices. The Algerian Energy Ministry will track the course of oil prices and all developments on the oil markets that were affected by COVID-19. Algeria held consultations and contacts with oil-producing and consuming countries in order to raise oil prices and to restore stability to the market. Energy Minister Mohamed Akab called OPEC member states and their allies to a meeting of experts of the Joint Technical Committee in order to analyse the current conditions of the oil market. The oil sector is facing a double shock in the field of supply and demand due to the coronavirus.
Algeria will not remain indifferent in the face of the recent developments of oil prices in the world markets. We will work to bridge the points of view and strengthen the strategies among the countries concerned.
The situation is troubling for Algeria and many countries. The decline in oil prices in the world markets has many causes, but the important thing is the results of this serious and disturbing price deterioration. Is Algeria going to succeed in its endeavor to bring the views of the producers and actors in the international petroleum markets closer? I think that at some stage and in critical situation, everyone will search for a meeting point and convergence, and this is what Algeria should work to accelerate.
The 11th edition of the African Performing Arts Market in Abidjan, the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, has been running since March the 7th. The event presents business opportunities for professionals, but also for tourists from several countries in Africa and the world. Let's now take a look.
This year, the African Arts and Entertainment Market welcomed more than 100 artisans from various countries around the world. Exhibitors each presented unique pieces to the delight of thousands of tourists and participants.
I am from Canada, Canadian. We have our booth here. I'm Première Nation, First Nations, Indian from Canada. And so we're selling our art cards. We have different leather-made things that we're selling as well. All of it is from Canada, all locally made. Yeah, so we have different leather work, different beading. That's actually very similar to different African cultures, which is amazing. And we have different textiles. So for example, this is made out of reindeer hair. And it's a very traditional art form that we have in Canada.
Massa has been a great festival so far. Coming from Jamaica, my eyes have been open to a lot of West African culture, a lot of the culture in Ivory Coast, here in Abidjan. All the different items they have selling in the market and the business places. It feels really, traditional, and I really appreciate that. Not coming from here and coming to Africa for the first time, being in Abidjan, it's been very wholesome.
Gael Jomo is a young Cameroonian textile designer. In his stand were a variety of items such as sandals, clothes, paintings, jewelry and handmade bags. He believes his participation in this event will further boost his activity.
People are very interested in my articles. They are both seduced and amazed by my work. Since the opening of Massa, I have sold a good number of items. I am very pleased.
According to the Ivorian authorities, Massa has a cultural, social and economic impact for Côte d'Ivoire and other countries present at this year's edition.
Massa is first of all a market, and a market is a place where people come to sell and buy products. After several years, Ivorians and tourists from around the world have become familiar with this market. Thanks to their strength and their will, they all participate in the development of Côte d'Ivoire through the Massa.
This cultural development program has two objectives: to support the creation and production of quality shows and to give a platform to creators in Africa and the world. Mohamed Abubakar, CGTN.
A former refugee from Mali has returned home to start his own tailoring business. Packed with valuable skills that he learned in Burkina Faso, Sidi Ould Amin is offering support to other refugees through vocational training to help them become self-reliant. CGTN's Brian Toussaint has that story.
In 2012, hundreds of thousands of people from Mali fled to Burkina Faso after conflict erupted. Armed rebels and government forces were at loggerheads over independence and greater autonomy for the northern region. Sidi Ould Amin is among those who chose to seek refuge in a bid to ensure safety for his family.
We became poor people. Before we were fine, but after this tragedy, the destruction, stealing, strikes, we have nothing left.
While living at the refugee camp, City engaged in a training program ran by the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR. He was adamant on turning his fate around through tailoring in the hopes of becoming self-reliant.
When I was informed that there was a tailoring program, I decided that's what I would prefer to do because my children's clothes at home are torn.
After returning home back in 2017, City set up a tailoring business in Mopti. He can now provide for his family and train youth from disadvantaged communities, helping them acquire tailoring skills.
This has become a small school as well. It prevents youth from straying or begging. They can benefit from the little experience I have.
By February 2020, over 130,000 refugees had fled Mali. Those displaced sought refuge in Niger, Mauritania, and Burkina Faso, which are also grappling with insecurity and staggering levels of displacement. Despite the enduring threat, some 70,000 Malians have chosen to return over time to areas they felt were safe enough to go back to. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
We're going to a short break now, don't go away. Lots more to come, including how a group of painters are overcoming disability to produce amazing works of art.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The Mouth and Foot Painters of South Africa are a special group of artists skilled in the technique of painting with their mouth or feet. They produce wonderful works of art. CGTN's Julie Shear takes a look.
Changing disability to ability. This is Patrick Boto's measure of independence. He became quadriplegic after a car accident.
In 1993, I was involved in a motor vehicle accident, and that is where I broke my neck, and that's how I became a quadriplegic. The first time I heard the word quadriplegic is when I became one, and I was 23 years old at the time. So I'm 26 years in the chair now, and that's why I can't use my hands and my feet, because I broke my neck between the fourth and the fifth vertebra.
Today, Boto is a master when it comes to painting with his mouth. But back in 1998, when he started, a painting took him months to complete.
My strongest muscle in my body at the moment is my tongue. So with a brush, I started to create slowly, but slowly I started to create some little pictures here and there. After the first one was finished, it took me 4 months. It gave me that satisfaction that, oh, I can do more.
The garden route is home to some of South Africa's most talented artists, including many mouth and foot painters. And with this abundant natural beauty, it's easy to understand why it has inspired so many.
The environment of the garden route is obviously very beautiful, very inspiring. The two topics I love the most is like flowers and animals, and also like seascape, landscapes. But it's always like inspiring to go into nature because you see the hand of God.
Patrick is a member of the Association of Mouth and Foot Painters since 2000. The association is a support structure for these incredible artists.
The Mouth and Foot Painters Association is all about currently 28 disabled artists. How we help the artists is we use those artwork and then we reproduce by printing on household goods. We also sell the paintings on their behalf, so we are actually very active involved in marketing the 28 artists.
Through his art, Patrick Boto shows that anything really is possible. And despite his daily struggles, Boto's determination to live and inspire is changing disability into ability. Julie Shara, CGTN, Knysna, South Africa.
All the sports news coming up for you after the break, including COVID-19 pandemic leaves athletes stranded as World Athletics postpone events to prevent infection.
Africa Live. Find your voice.